Okay, welcome everyone to the Fundmatch webinar on Know Before You Do. The important steps to know for eligible Fundmatch activities. It's great to see you all today. I'm Diana Buswell, Fundmatch Liaison at WSADA, and today there'll be a lot of information, so make sure to take some notes and we'll discuss it at the end. The presentation today will be recorded and uploaded to our website for your reference, and the presentation will take about 20 to 25 minutes. Hold your questions till the end and we'll get them answered then. And it seems like, I want to check a couple things here. Get some people admitted. Okay, it seems like we're pretty much ready, and so let's get started. Our agenda today includes getting to know WSADA. What is Fundmatch? The Fundmatch process, our required documentation, the claims process, and then some resources and wrap up. Our mission at WSADA is to increase international growth of Western agribusinesses by providing financial support, export readiness, and business development services. Our vision for 2033 is that Western agribusinesses continue to thrive in world markets. For those of you not familiar, what is the Fundmatch program? Fundmatch helps eligible Western U.S. food and agricultural suppliers remain competitive internationally by providing 50% cost reimbursement for eligible marketing activities. The program gives companies the ability to break into new markets, expand their existing shares, and maximize their marketing budgets to make their efforts go farther. Small agribusinesses can now apply to offset future international marketing costs. How do I qualify for Fundmatch? Well, you must be headquartered in the Western U.S. region. You must be a small to medium Western agribusiness. Your products are at least 50% grown in the U.S., and you've been in business a minimum of 1 year. Now let's go through the process of Fundmatch and the program. Applications for Fundmatch are completed online. And to begin the online application, sign on to your WSADA dashboard, select Fundmatch applications, and begin the process. Your first step will be a Fundmatch consultation with your engagement executive. Your engagement executive will reach out to you to answer any of your questions or schedule a consult. If you do not know who your engagement executive is, simply email fundmatch@wasada.org to be connected. The fee for our application is a non-refundable $300 fee, and please note that this will increase after January 1 to $350. So if you have early activities you want to get completed, you may want to have your contract in place prior to avoid this additional cost. The application will route to our Fundmatch manager, and that's Justin Riggs, and he will review the application for approval. Please be sure to work through any back and forth questions needed in the process. Once approved, you'll receive a contract to sign electronically and the invoice for your 6% funding. After signing and paying the invoice, you're eligible to conduct your activities. And once the activities are completed, compile your documentation onto your laptop or desktop to prepare to submit for reimbursement. Now, there's a couple of reminders to discuss about this process. You must be contracted prior to your event or campaign, so kind of be sensitive to that. And this also applies to changes during the year where you may add a country market or add some more products. Be sure to do those and complete that prior to your event or campaign in that country market. Once you've compiled your documentation, you submit your claim online at your WSATA dashboard. WSATA will review the claim, and if you need any additional information, we'll simply request it. And then once it's reviewed and approved, funds will be dispersed to the company. And please refer to pages 10 through 16 of the Fundmatch guide for a full description of all of these instructions with regard to your application process. And if you ever have any questions, just pick up the phone or send an email and reach out to your engagement executive. I want to talk a little bit about what the Fundmatch program offers reimbursement for international and domestic activities. Let's talk about international expenses first. Advertising, website production, freight and shipping, giveaways, in-store demos and in-store displays, international trade shows, outbound trade missions, international travel, labels and packaging, printed sales materials, translation expenses, uniforms, and wages for temporary labor. Now, with that, it's always important to know what the guidelines are in those international activities. And so that brings us to our next topic. This slide here is a copy of page 6 of the Fundmatch guide, maybe the most important page in the guide. The origin statement, which is the cornerstone of the Fundmatch program, must be present in all of your international activities and campaigns. Note that the 4 top examples with the green check, these are the acceptable origin statements to use in your activities. Product of the USA, product of America, grown in the USA, made in the USA. If you determine to use your state, it would need to have the state name completely spelled out. Product of California, grown in Washington, grown in Oregon, made in Montana are examples. And in addition, your brand name must be present in your activities as well. If your company name is different from your brand name, always remember to promote that brand name. And if you ever have any questions about how you want to use your origin statement or what's acceptable in a campaign or event, please contact your engagement executive and they'll guide you through the process. Now let's go to domestic trade shows. Participating in the US market at approved domestic trade shows is a solid way to make international connections. On pages 61 and 62 of the guide, they list the approved domestic shows for 2025. Always keep in mind to contract with Fundmatch prior to your show to be eligible for reimbursement. The first ones that come to mind, we have Winter Fancy Food coming up in January, then of course Expo West, and there's several international shows as well. So just keep that in mind. Now we're going to talk about the eligible expenses for domestic trade shows. That would include your booth space, your booth insurance expenses, rental of temporary booth displays, uniforms that promote your brand, product showcases, lead retrieval, temporary labor wages such as demonstrators, chefs, hostesses, brand ambassadors, those are all eligible. Demonstration supplies, such as your disposable cups, your spoons, your napkins, or food purchased to enhance your product. Equipment rentals, such as hot plates or toasters. Freight and shipping to and from the show is eligible for reimbursement, as are some management and supervision fees. POS materials, printed sales materials, the production and design of those materials are eligible for reimbursement, as are giveaways, up to $4 maximum per item, reimbursed at 50%, which is $2. Proration of activities. You know, it's always important to speak on this and using approved products in your activities. All activities must include approved products from your current Fundmatch application. If you market other brands or products that are not approved, the activity will be what's called prorated, and that applies to trade shows, missions, displays, demos, all activities for Fundmatch. Now, for an example, if a company exhibits at a trade show and markets 4 approved products in the booth, but then you also maybe have two products you want to run as a trial or something like that, those are not approved on your product list for Fundmatch. The entire claim, that would result in the entire claim being prorated at 67% based on only the approved products, and then reimbursed at 50%. If your total claim, for example, is $5,000, 67% of that is $3,350. Reimbursed at 50% would be a reimbursement of $1,675 instead of $2,500 if everything would have been approved. So keep that in mind, and if you ever have any questions, contact your engagement executive for guidance, and they'll be able to help you for sure. You may need to add new products from time to time for approval prior to your events. That's really easy to do. You just sign on to your Wasada dashboard, click Add Product, and you upload your label and the origin statement if necessary, and complete the submission. It takes a couple days for the Fundmatch manager to review and approve those. And this also goes for if you want to add a country market as well. So keep that in mind. And if you have any questions on this, be sure to ask them at the end of the presentation. Now we're going to talk about the required documentation, and each individual expense requires submission of these 3 items. The first item would be your invoices that are dated with the name and address and contact info of the vendor. And it would need to include all the itemized charges, the name of the payer, and the company contact information. And keep in mind that translation will be needed for invoices in a foreign language. You'll also need to include proof of payment that matches those invoices. That would include your bank or credit card statement in a PDF format. Please include the first page and just the page of transactions, so you don't need to send the entire statement. If you paid by wire, include the wire transfer form plus the corresponding statement. And if you pay by check, include the check image plus the corresponding statement. And if you pay by cash receipt, include the signed and dated cash receipt by the vendor with description of the services. Now, proof of activity depends upon the activity that you do. Sometimes it requires photos, reports, invoices. Just be sure to reference the Fundmatch guide for each type of activity to determine what the proof of activity is. all international activities, and this is a reminder, you'll hear this a lot in all of our presentations. Please be sure that it displays your brand name and a valid U.S. origin statement. And this is the point where I want to remind everyone to organize your documentation as you go onto your laptop or desktop, so it's all ready to go when you get ready to submit your claim online. Okay, references to know before you do. Well, first check the Fundmatch guide. And the Fundmatch guide has itemized descriptions for each one of your activities and campaigns, and you will get detailed information from that. Another thing is to sign on to your Wasata dashboard and verify that the country market is listed and that the product list you have is accurate and in place prior to your event or campaign. Contact your engagement executive to discuss any questions prior to the activity. And if you don't know your executive, as indicated before, just email us at fundmatch@wasata.org and we'll get you connected. And always remember that origin statement and brand promotion. Now we have a new resource out on our website, and it's under Fundmatch under checklists. And these are the individual activities that are eligible for reimbursement. And I tell you what, we'll do a little experiment here. Let's click on this. See if we can get it to come up. Hope you can see this. So when you go out and access these checklists, they include the claim documentation. This one's for advertising. And some of the important notes that apply to that activity. And then it shows the eligible expenses and the ineligible expenses. And as you can see, there's a pretty long list here. So feel free to access those. It'll really save you a lot of time. And I guess the final step is, once you've completed your campaign and compile all your documentation, is to submit that claim online. You sign on to your Wasata dashboard. There's select the Fundmatch program, the claims tile, and this orange button here, start claim. And then you'll begin to enter in all of your expenses. We're almost to the end here of our presentation, and then we can move on to your questions. Number one is to schedule a consult and meet your engagement executive. And like we discussed before, if you don't know who that is, reach out to fundmatch@wasata.org. And of course, the Fundmatch guide. And also review the example claims and tutorials found on our website. You can bookmark the Fundmatch guide for easy reference. And for specific questions, those tutorials are really good references for you. And there we are at the end. Thank you so much for attending our webinar today. We're going to move to the question portion in just a moment, but now is the time for that. Feel free to leave the webinar if you need to, and you'll receive an email in a few days with this presentation and the other resources. And email fundmatch@wasata.org with any other questions regarding this program, or visit www.wasata.org. And with that, if you just give me a moment, I will adjust my screens here a little bit, and we will get to our questions. That's always the fun part. Okay, so, we have this little raise hand function up here. If all of you would like, you can probably just remember to unmute yourself and feel free to answer questions. So, do we have anything pressing from anyone? Aline, hi, Aline.
Hello.
Let's see. Oh, thank you, Jamie. Appreciate that. Okay, anyone else? Are there no questions? Here, I must have covered everything.
I have one quick question, if you can hear me.
I can just barely hear you.
My
Who is it
question
that's
is,
speaking? Lydia?
yes, how are you?
Great. How are you doing? I can just barely hear you.
Okay, just a quick question. So when is the last activity date that we can submit for the funds for this year?
Ah, that's a great question. Um, it depends upon when the activity is done. You're supposed to have your activity or your claim in for your activity 60 days from the last date of that activity. We accept claims for the current year until February 28th of 2025.
Okay,
So
so
in
basically
case you
December
missed
31st.
something, yeah, in case you missed something or that kind of thing, you can still submit up to that time.
Okay, very good.
Great.
That was my question. Thank you.
You bet. Any other questions? Thank you so much, Lydia. Linda, how are you today? Linda, yes, how are you today? What is your question?
Hi, I wasn't sure if you could hear me or not. My question, I just want to clarify when, so I'm looking at 2025 for the January Fancy Food Show. I will keep track of all of my expenses up to that point, and then after the event is when I will submit for reimbursement. Is that correct?
That is exactly correct. And say, for instance, you paid for your booth at the beginning of last year, like you booked another booth right after the other Winter Fancy Food Show. It doesn't matter. I mean, as long as those expenses go towards Winter Fancy Food, you can submit those for reimbursement. And yes, you do submit them after the event is conducted.
All right. Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you, Linda. Aline,
Hello, I
what can
have a
I
quick
do for you
question.
today?
Yeah, we are going to the Winter Fancy Food Show, but we are exhibiting under the Idaho Pavilion. So I already had to pay for my part for the booth. So I haven't requested a Fundmatch yet, but it had to be a while back because there were limited booths available for us. So will this be able to be part of the reimbursement?
Oh, yes. You don't have to be in the Wasata Pavilion, although we would love you to be in the Wasata Pavilion. But for Winter Fancy Food, you can simply sign up for a booth. Now, Helene, I want to understand, are you in your own booth or are you sharing with someone else, with
No,
another
it is
company?
our own booth, but the state of Idaho booked like 8 or 10 booths and they paid part of our booth.
That's great. If you want to go into that Idaho Pavilion, that's fine.
But can I get reimbursement for the part I paid for the booth?
Yes, absolutely. Make sure you
Okay.
take your photos, reference the Fundmatch guide, and look at all the things that you need to have in a row. And absolutely, you may.
Also we are rebranding, so we have new logo, everything is changing. new website. I mean, the whole 9 yards. So I need to get new polo shirts with the logo and promotional items with the new logo. So I'll be able to add that to the claim, right?
Right. Helene, does your logo have your brand name on it?
Yes.
Okay, good. As long as your brand name is present in that, that should be eligible.
Yes,
Yes.
always. I mean, we
And
change
just
them, but
read through.
we
There's
have,
a whole section in the guide on uniforms and things like that. You might want to take a quick look at that just to make sure. But in domestic activities, the brand name must be present for
okay.
reimbursement.
And so we also, it also includes the freight to carry our crates from our facility to the show, and
Yes,
also all the labor that Freeman will give us.
yes. The shipping is eligible to and from the show. I don't know if there is a different vendor that handles, once you get to the show, moving
Yes, there is. It's Freeman.
that's eligible as well.
Okay, perfect. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day, Helene. Good to talk with you.
Take care.
Julie,
Hey, Diana. So I just
how are
want to
you?
clarify. I'm with Washington State Department of Ag, but wanted to have you clarify that a lot of times we tell companies, you need to apply and get approved before you actually do these activities. But the last question from Helene was like, I've already paid for that. I haven't applied yet. So I kind of want you to make that more clear how that actually works, if you can.
Absolutely. Well, like we discussed in our presentation as well, that you must be contracted with Fundmatch prior to your event or campaign. And I thank you for that, Julie. I just want to make sure that everyone understands. And I'm sure, Helene, that you probably are pretty familiar, but that includes, and what that means is that you have to have your contract signed and your fees paid prior to going to the event. Does that help?
Well, I thought she said she's already paid for it and she hasn't applied yet. But
Oh, she
maybe I,
can incur expenses prior to application as long as she is contracted prior to going.
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yes. So I guess I'm unclear whether she's contracted yet. But okay, that helps. Thank you.
you bet. Linda.
Hi again. My question is regarding the origin statement. Are you saying that that has to be on every type of our packaging, or can you elaborate on that a little bit and what you mean by the origin statement? Ours say handcrafted in Oregon.
Okay.
Does that qualify?
It says handcrafted in Oregon.
Yes.
That is not a listed acceptable origin statement. So you may have to make adjustments to that if you go and do international activities. So for example, do you have a country market that you work in already?
We, well, I'm talking to a company in Canada, but currently we don't do anything international. It's just US.
Okay. So if you say, for example, you had to have new labels done for Canada, each province, they have their standards on what they like to have on their products. And you would need to include product of the USA on those for Canada.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
But I don't have
If
to
I
have
can
that for reimbursement for domestic.
No, with the domestic market, if you are just working a domestic show here, an approved domestic show, you have to promote your brand, but it is not required to have an origin statement at a domestic show.
Perfect. Thank you.
You bet.
Appreciate that very much.
You bet.
If I can clarify one point.
Yes. Is this Lydia?
Yes. So we had done t-shirts, excuse me, we had done t-shirts for an expo in Mexico. And we had put basically our company name made or and the American flag, and that was not acceptable. We had to
No,
no, they said that it had to say made in the USA, even on the t-shirts, even though it had an American flag.
that's correct. That's correct. All origin statements must say product of the USA or made in the USA. Like having a flag or a logo is not acceptable for the requirement of origin statement. Is that what you ran
Yep.
into, Lydia?
Yep. It was a shocker.
Yep.
I thought the
Yep.
American flag would be sufficient, but it wasn't.
Yeah. And that's also out there under the little, conditions underneath the origin statement. It states that as well, too. I'm glad you asked, though. That's a great question. Helene.
Yes. So to make sure it's clear, if we have uniform like polo shirt with a company name on it, and we provide pictures with people showing that logo, this is sufficient to be able to be 50% reimbursed on these polo shirts,
And
right?
Helene, are you speaking of an international event or a domestic event?
Domestic.
If it's domestic, like we were just chatting with Lydia about, the domestic approved trade shows will require promotion of your brand. If your brand name is different than your company name, then you should always promote your brand name. For domestic, it is not required to have the origin statement on it, just for international.
No, but I mean, the polo shirt has our logo and the name of our company. So that's good, right?
So is your company the same as your brand name of your product?
No.
Okay. So if it has the company name, then no, it would have to be your brand name that would be on there.
Okay, I don't understand because last year I was able to get polo shirt reimbursement and it was just the logo and the name of, because our company is Idaho Milk Products.
Okay, so
And
isn't that on your labels though?
it is on, well, our products are called milk protein concentrate, milk protein isolate. They're, and we actually gonna sample soft serve ice cream
Uh-huh.
at the Winter Fancy Food Show, but it's made with our ingredients. But so what should be on the polo shirt?
Well, if it's domestic, you're not going to have to worry about an origin statement, but it should have your brand name on your logo.
Well,
So
our
I would
brand is our
definitely,
company name. Then we have different products.
yeah. Helene, I definitely would want to take a look at those or have your engagement executive look at those. And I know
Okay.
that Kelsey is your
Yes.
engagement
Yeah.
executive. So I'm going to have her reach out to you so to
Okay.
make sure of what your plan is. That way you can send her screenshots and that type of thing of what you'll be using.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Does that help?
Yeah.
Great. And I put a note down just now to let Kelsey know that she needs some help with that. And Julie.
Yeah, so one other thing, if you could talk about for the international shows, if you're not going to be redoing your labels anytime soon, you can add a sticker. So if you want
Yes,
to
you
mention
can.
that as well, I think that's helpful.
Yeah, you can bring your labels if it's a specific uh, campaign that you're doing, like to either replace your labels or bring your labels into what they call compliance for that country market. You can sticker them with product of the USA and in lieu of getting a full print until you get ready to actually print those labels. Thank you, Julie, for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? I'm still making notes here. Okay. Well, if there's no other questions, certainly you guys have a great day, and reach out if you have anything else or if you can think of anything else, and we will get right back to you. And in the meantime, thank you so much for joining. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day, everyone.